Hello, welcome to Zigmatech Learning Hub. I'll be your instructor for English language. For this class, we are going to be taking our exercises from the ExamGuide app. If you don't have the application already installed on your device, I will want you to download the app in order to follow along in the class. ExamGuide is a leading educational app that helps students prepare adequately for various exams like UTME, post-UTME, WEAC, GCE, KCPE, IJMB, JUPEB, BECE, JSCE, NCEE, NECO, etc. You can download the app from www.examguide.com or Google Play Store. Please subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell to be updated on new videos. Ready for today's class? Okay, let's get started. Welcome to today's lesson. For today, we'll be looking at informal letter writing. Okay, before we proceed, I would like to give us a peripheral knowledge on letter writing. It is important that we know that letter writing is a means of communication right from the time of old. We have always used letter writing as a means through which we communicate to one another. All right, when there hasn't been an introduction of our gadgets, the phone and the laptops, we have always communicated to our loved ones who are distant from us in respect to place of location via letter writing. Now, the most important thing that we have to know about letter writing is that we have about 3 aspects of them, and hopefully we will run through these aspects of letter writing so that for exam purposes, if we are asked questions on letter writing, we would be able to, by virtue of the knowledge we'll get during this lesson, to know if you are to write informal letter writing, formal letter writing, or semi-formal letter writing. Now, it is pertinent for us to know that we actually have 3 types of letter writing. 3 types of letter writing. We have the informal letter writing, we have the formal letter writing, and the semi-formal letter writing. So for today, we want to look at the formal letter writing. All right, let's get started. Now, this is my intro. What is an informal letter? What is an informal letter? All right. An informal letter writing is a type of letter writing written to family, to friends, or generally said to loved ones. Now, it is informal because it's personal, it is private. It can as well, like I said, be called a private letter or a personal letter. It is what you write to someone that you have cordial relationship with, someone that you have this close relationship with. So you write to the person based on what you want to express to that person. Now let's look at what we have on the slide. It says informal letters are personal letters. They are written to let your friends or family know about what is going on in your life and to convey your regards. That's what you do in informal letter writing. When you're writing to your family, when you're writing to your friend, when you're writing to a close relative, you're writing based on what you want them to know about you, things that are going on in your life that you want to get them involved in, and as well they give you a response. That's the reply you get from them depending on the nature of the letter. Now, an informal letter is usually written to a family member, a close acquaintance, or a friend. So these are the people you write informal letter to. So when you're asked in your exam to write a letter, a question will be given. Definitely you will not be asked to write an informal letter. It won't be put in that way. But the state of the question tells you if it's an informal letter. Having known now that informal letters are written to family members, to close acquaintances and friends, it is now on you, the onus is on you to know the nature of the letter and how to approach it. So the language used in an informal letter is casual and personal because it's informal. When you say something is informal, that means there are no strict rules applied. you do it in a way that is personal, a way that you feel convenient to do it, and the other person receives it in that light. Now, what can you write about in an informal letter? It's very important that we know what we write about in an informal letter. When we go further to the other letter types, you will see the differences, and that will help you a whole lot. So you can literally write about anything you feel or think you want to convey. That's the truth. If I want to convey, maybe I have a friend who stays far from me, and she knows that I go through maybe a particular phobia when we were together. It's okay if I convey that very aspect of my life to that friend of mine. So it depends on what I want to tell the person. I'm not restricted on what to write. It's on me to decide what I want to convey to that friend of mine, to my father, to my mother, to my brother, be it my big brother or my younger brother. So informal letters can be written to inform your dear ones about your success in a competition, about a movie you watched recently, about the trip that you would be going on, and so on. So these are aspects that you can write on in an informal letter, things you can convey to. Now, it's pertinent that you know that it's not possible to write such in a formal letter. It's not. But here in an informal letter, you can convey such things as your experiences. You went for a picnic, you want to share it with a loved one, you can actually do that. That you do in an informal letter. It can also be to inquire about their well-being. You've been far from home and you just want to know how well they are doing. You write them a letter asking or inquiring of their well-being, and also to invite them along with you on a trip, to congratulate them on their new job, to convey your regards, etc. So these are numerous things or topics you could write on in an informal letter. So you can be as personal as you want when writing an informal. You can be as personal as you want. In that way, mean you can use the words you choose to use. Remember, it is said that when you're conveying something to someone you know, you don't mince words. You say it the way you want to say it, because you know you have a personal relationship with this person. So there is room for you to use slangs when writing an informal letter. You know that slang that you two know very well, you can use it in your informal letter. But because of exam purposes, whichever slang you decide to use in an informal letter, I'm not saying don't use slangs, but whichever slang you decide to use in an informal letter while writing exam, you must use a slang associated with everybody. Don't use a slang that is limited to your school environment. No, it's wrong, because that a letter will be read by an examiner and marked by an examiner. So if you're using slang, use a particular slang that is common to all. I know that the word dude is a slang which boys call themselves. So you actually are writing to a friend of yours who is a boy, you can use the word dude. Dear dude is allowed because the examiner knows that dude, as much as it's a slang, but it's generally accepted. Now, again, personal words that you can use, you can actually contract your words. You can contract your words. When we talk about word contraction, we refer to using your apostrophe to break certain words, to eliminate certain letters in a word, and it flows like that. So I don't want to write, I do not know you. I can say, I don't know you. That's what I mean by word contraction. Now let's look at another headline which says how to write an informal letter. How do we actually write an informal letter? It's very important that as students we learn how to write an informal letter. Sometimes questions are asked. People may not know the type of letter it is. So when you understand the nature of a particular letter, when a question is asked, you're able to identify if it's actually an informal letter, a formal letter, or a semi-formal letter. So like any letter, there is a format to write an informal letter in English. Unlike a formal letter, an informal letter does not need to state something specific. An informal letter need not state something specific. So you're going to write about what you want to write. I want to tell my siblings about my health. In telling them about my health, I can as well mention something else while talking about my health. But it's not like that in formal letter. If I want to write a formal letter, I will be restricted to the topic that I want to write on. I won't say I want to tell the governor to take care of the roads, and I'll switch from taking care of the roads to mentioning security aspects. No, I will have to limit myself to what I've been asked to write on. So it can be written in an easy conversational style. You converse. It's as if you're conversing, you're discussing with the person you're writing to. So they are in the nature of a friendly chat, so it can include a variety of topics. Just like I stated earlier, you can mention as many things as you choose to in an informal letter. It can have all that you want to tell your dear one about. You can use colloquial expressions unlike formal letters. So colloquial expressions are those expressions that are not formal. You use them, they are everyday use of words that are not to be looked into or taken seriously, just like in your formal letter. So there are a few easy guidelines that you can follow to be able to write impressive informal letters. So let's look at this format. So the format of an informal letter should be as follows. All right, you have your address, very important. How would it be that you want to write a letter and you don't have your address? There must always be an address. Why? Because it's assumed that the receiver of the letter will definitely write back to you. Now, if your receiver wants to write back to you and you didn't put your address, how would that letter get to you? Obviously, you know it will not. When you take it to the post office, they would always ask you to pen down the address of the receiver. So address is very important in an informal letter. Now, someone would ask, why write an address since the person is not sending the letter to me? Remember, I told us earlier that letter writing was then a way through which people communicate to their loved ones when we didn't have gadgets. So we are looking at it still from that light. So what we do in exam is that the examiner wants to test your ability to follow or run through the format of an informal letter. Not that the letter will be posted, no. But we want to see how far, the examiner wants to see how far you've learned letter writing or your ability to apply the formats, because that's what makes it worthwhile when writing your letter. So once you're starting your letter, you want to write a letter to your friend, you want to write a letter to your father, you want to write a letter to your sibling, you must first of all write your address. Now, as we get on, we'll look at a format that's a sample that you see how a letter, if an informal letter is written. Now, for the address, like I said earlier, is very important. Your address must be that which you have as your own address, your house address or your office address. It depends on which you feel is convenient for you. The address is written at the topmost right-hand side of your answer sheet. Once you're writing your address, you want to write a letter, you have to write your address. That must be done at the topmost right-hand side of your answer sheet. So once you place your answer sheet before you, you tilt towards the right, the topmost, the very first line there is where your address will start with. Now remember, it's very important. The examiner is focusing basically your ability to keep a straight line while writing your address. That's number one. The examiner is also looking out your ability to punctuate your address appropriately. That's number two. Number three, the examiner will also look out your ability to maintain your capital letter for each letter of every word. These are very important. The moment you're able to keep these things very well, then you have your mark. I don't think any examiner will see you write it appropriately and decide to take your mark away from you. It's not possible. So once you write your address appropriately, the first letter starting with a capital letter, the next line, you must make sure that the next letter of the next line aligns itself appropriately with the first letter of the first line. Never to worry, when we go to the sample, you will understand better. Now, after the address, you have the dates. Once you're done with your address, you have your dates. And after your date, you have greetings. Please, I need us to pay very close attention, because when we get to the formal letter, you will see the difference. Though we have similarities to an extent, but there are still differences. So after your date is your greetings. The greetings, you have your dear friend, or you refer to the person's name, dear mom. You can use, in fact, you're not limited to your greetings. Your greetings, it's by your choice. You can use any name you desire, but for the formal format, we have dear and the person's name. But there are other ways through which you can start off your greetings. Then you have your introduction, you greet the person. That's where you have your pleasantries, all right? How are you? I hope you're fine. In an informal letter, it's very important that you observe pleasantries. What do I mean by pleasantries? Pleasantries are greetings, inquiring of the person, how the person is, how his family is, or how her family is, or how the siblings are faring, and every other thing that has to do with her. Then finally, you move to the body of the letter. Now, the body of the letter is where you discuss virtually everything you want to let your reader know, or the receiver of the letter. Now, for the body of the letter, it could be 3 paragraphs. Yes, in your body, you could have 3 paragraphs. The introduction is a paragraph on its own. The body of the letter is where you now expatiate on what you want the person to know, the information you want to relay to the person. Then you have your conclusion. Yes, what is it about the conclusion? It's just to ask your writer to extend your greetings to them and let the person know that you are expecting a reply also from him or from her. Then you have your signature. By signature, we mean your complimentary clause. You put yours sincerely and your name, that's your first name, or whatever it is the person calls you. Remember, we said that informal letters are friendly letters, they are personal letters, they are chatty letters. So you are not limited to how you sign off. If you're signing off, it mustn't be yours sincerely, but we use yours sincerely. Why? Because it's the formal format. You can use your friend, you can use best wishes, you can use your love, you can use your ever friend, and your name. Remember, it mustn't be your name, really. If there is a pet name that the person calls you, you put it there. All right, so let's look at the informal letters, format, writing, and structure. That's the address, so we want to pick them one after the other. You said the first thing to be written while writing any letter is to have a proper address. Both the addresses of the receiver and the recipient should be present. All right, so we usually write the address on the top left hand right side. That's when you're placing your book this way, but if you have it for yourself, it's the top right hand side. The address should be accurate, complete, and concise. I've said that earlier. It has to be accurate. It should be what one should look at and say, oh, really, it is accurate. Now, if the letter is coming to Rivers State, how do I align my address? Should I just say Rivers State, Port Harcourt, House 22? No, it should be House 22 coming first, so that once the letter gets to Rivers State, from Rivers State they begin to trace it. Oh, this letter is going to Rivers State. Once it gets to Rivers State, where does it go to? Should it go to Eleme? Should it go to Port Harcourt? You have your Port Harcourt there. Okay, we're taking it to Port Harcourt. Once it gets to Port Harcourt, where do we now take it to? You say take it to maybe Moji Housing Estate. When it gets to Moji Housing Estate, in where? In Moji, where do we take it to? Take it to House 6 or House 5. So that's saying that the letter, the address of the letter is what? Accurate and complete. Then make it short. You don't need something lengthy. Make it precise so that it won't be hard for the person to locate. So even when writing to close friends and relatives, the address must be written so they can reply back to the letter with ease if the reader wants to do so. Like I said earlier, remember back in the days when letters are being replied, that's the essence of that address, that once I see the address, I'm able to write back to this person using that same address that the person has written to me with. It says, if the recipient of the letter is in a foreign country, do not forget to write your own country. Very important. So if you're writing to a friend of yours, possibly someone came all the way from London, all right, to Nigeria, and you became friends with that person, and you two decided to write each other. You want to write him or her to find out if he has reached his destination and you're in Nigeria. It is appropriate that you put your country in your address so that they know that the letter is coming from Nigeria. And when your recipient is writing back, the person puts his own words, address, so that when you're writing back, you can easily do so. Now we have the dates. Very important. You have to write your dates. The date is written in an appropriate way, 19th January 2022. We don't do 19/12/2022 or 22. No, you don't have to be in a hurry. You don't just do it anyhow because you feel it's an informal letter. It's appropriate that you put it the right way. All right, then you have your greetings. It says it is the same thing as you greet someone when they visit you or you visit them. The starting of the letter should always have a greeting. Now, the greeting should depend upon the person to whom you are writing the letter. If I'm writing to my dad, obviously I will say, Dear Dad, all right? So if I'm writing to a friend, I will say, Dear Friend, if I don't want to mention the person's name. Or I can say, Dearest, if I'm writing to a friend. So my greeting is dependent on the person I'm writing to and the level of relationship I have with that person. But notice that when you are writing to a friend who is a bit elderly, you should also put your dear with the right name. All right, so let's look at the introductory paragraph. Yes, it says the introduction paragraph is a must in all types of letter writing. In this paragraph, you usually make the recipient comfortable by asking about their family well-being. You might begin by asking the recipient about their well-being, or you may say that you hope the letter finds them in good health and great spirits. You also wish to find them in good health as his and their family when they receive the letter. So that's very important. I said it earlier. Your introduction is where you express your pleasantries. How are you? I hope you are fine. That gives the recipient a good landing. It makes the person know that you're concerned about him or her. Then we have the body of the letter. You said you can elaborate on things for which you have written the letter. You can casually inform them of the latest happenings that took place in your life before you wrote the letter. So these are things you discuss in the body. Remember we said the body may not be a particular thing. You can discuss a whole lot with them depending on what you are asked to write on. If it's an exam condition and you are asked to write an informal letter, it is that very thing you're asked to write on that you will write. Do not say because you are at liberty to write a variety of things, you begin to write even the one you were not asked to write. That would be very wrong. So once you're asked to write in an informal letter, the examiner tells you what to write on. Limit whatever you're writing to what you are asked to write on. If you are asked to write to your friend, notifying your friend of 5 things or 3 things you intend to do to keep yourself busy in this Christmas period, definitely you will have to write within that thing you're asked to write on. You will not begin to write on what happened in your school before you came back. No, you tell the person the 3 things you intend to do to keep yourself busy. So even if you want to travel to London or UK, wherever, you tell the person what you intend to do. These are things you're talking about, not to bring in any material that is not relevant to the topic you've been given to write on. So one way to determine the quality of your letter is to remember how you talk to the person in a conversation. It's very important. How you talk to the person in a conversation will also restrict you on how you also write to the person. But note this, for exam purposes, sometimes the way we talk shouldn't be the way we write, because if we begin to write the way we talk to friends, we may fail the exam. Remember, this topic is for exam purpose. So do not begin to write the way you talk. If you talk casually, without punctuation, without observing your commas and your full stop, it's not that same way you should when you're writing your letter, because someone is reading the letter and you are to be scored based on what you've written. So you have to give your best, observe your punctuations, speak the right English, use the right concord. That way you're able to gain your mark for the exam. So finally we have the conclusion. You say this is the ending of the letter. You wish them good luck and wrap up the letter. You may write that you wish to meet them soon enough or have long conversations. While summarizing the letter, say meaningful and good quality words goodbye to the reader. And do not forget to invite the reader to write back or reply your letter. This is very important. That's basically what the conclusion is all about. You're wishing the receiver well and hoping that he or she writes back to you. Then you have your signature. The signature here, I mean, is your sign of what we refer to as complimentary close. Now, there are no specific words used for signature in informal letters, like I said earlier, but know that the formal format for signing off in an informal letter is yours sincerely. That's the formal format. But that notwithstanding, what I'm saying in essence is that there are other sign-offs for informal letter that we have here. Lots of love. You write your name or your pet name, best wishes, kind regards, and warm regards. So below it, you can write your name and sign off from the letter. All right, so it's very important that I give you a sample. To be out of place to say so much and not give you a sample to show what I have explained so far. So this is my own letter that I've written, and I want you to look at it closely. Oh, that's notwithstanding, nobody is perfect, so there should be a comma on this A state. After the A state, there should be a comma. So we have, okay, so that's the letter. But let's go to previous. I want to look at the letter again. You can see that my address, every first letter of every word starts with capital letter. That's how it ought to be. Now look at my Port Harcourt. This is very important. Over time, you notice that people hyphenate Port Harcourt. It is very wrong. You don't hyphenate Port Harcourt. Port Harcourt is actually one word. It's not a compound word that you hyphenate. The only thing is that you space out and your H is in capital letter. So you can see that after my H, under my H is my N and it's directly under it. Then I have my W, which is also aligning with the first two letters of the first sentences, likewise River State and my dates. So you see that everything is well written. An examiner looking at these dates will have no choice, this address rather, will have no choice than to score me the full mark. If the full mark for address is 2 points, definitely I have my 2 points here. Please pardon my not observing the comma after the estate. There should be a comma after the estate. So this is a good address. Now what I'm saying in this address now is that the letter is from River State going to someone who is in another state. Someone who is in another state is receiving this letter. This letter is not going to someone in another country. No. If it's going to someone in another country, obviously I will have to add my own country. So as it is, it's going to any state of my choice. So if it's going to, let's say, Uyo, that's a Akwa Ibom, yes, that means it's when the person is writing back, the person puts his own state. That's what it means. All right, so now we have, having looked at the address of the writer, we have the next thing. Remember, everything has to be chronologically written. So I can't write my salutation without the address. The address has to come first. Remember, in everything we do, we have to follow the due process. That's the steps involved in whatever we want to do. So after the address, we'll have the salutation, which is Dear John. All right. Now, it's possible that when I'm writing my salutation, if I call him JJ, I could write Dear JJ. All right. But writing the person's name is still not out of place. So After the salutation is the body of the letter. Remember when we looked at the body, we first of all looked at the introduction. We said there must be an introduction. And your introduction is that aspect that talks about the greetings, all right, inquiring of the person's well-being and that of his or her family. Sometimes we call it, or rather we also call it pleasantries. So the introduction of an informal letter is usually the place of pleasantries where you inquire of the general well-being of the person you're writing to, that's your recipient. Now, I want to bring our knowledge to something, that we have two types of paragraphing. Two types of paragraphing. You have the indented type of paragraph and you have the block paragraph. Now, either of the two can be used in an exam and the examiner will not, penalize you for that. But it is outrightly wrong to start off with the indented paragraph and at some point you find yourself using the block paragraph. It is wrong. You will agree with me that looking at the letter, it will not be good looking, so to speak. So if you're using the block paragraph, please run the letter using the block paragraph. All right. If it's the indented paragraph, then you must use the indented paragraph all through. The letter we have here is the block paragraph. The block paragraph is that type of paragraphing where you start your letter very close to the margin. You don't leave any space. Then when you're done with a particular paragraph and you want to start in another paragraph, you leave a line and start off in the next line. That's the block paragraph, which I observed here. All right, so we see in the letter you have your introduction, which inquires of the well-being of the writer, letting the writer know that it's been a long time, I've missed you, and I thought it wise to write to you, being that I'm off today. Now we have the second paragraph, which says, I am fine here and I've recently started learning French and have completed few modules. That's notifying the person of things that are happening around him or her. Remember we said it, that informal letter is a personal letter. And by personal letter, we mean you tell the person things that have to do with you. So it's another paragraph and it's a new idea. That's one thing I need to let us understand, that in writing letters or essays of any type, a paragraph should discuss an idea. By an idea, I mean a particular thing. Now, it is out of place that I want to tell someone, I'm writing to a friend, and I have 3 things to tell that friend of mine, and I jam-pack everything in a paragraph. Organization-wise, it is 0 for you. So you are expected to express your ideas in different paragraphs. Now, the paragraph 1, as you can see, was centered on pleasantries. Yes, the paragraph 1 is centered on pleasantries. Then paragraph 2 is notifying the recipient of what has been going on. And he says he's running a French class. And he's now trying to buttress on that French class that he or she is running. He says, next week I am having the last exam and will be soon graduating. I also started cooking due to the lockdown and will be attaching few pictures of the dishes I learned to cook. Mom and dad are fine and they quite often miss you. So you see that in this second paragraph, the writer has achieved a particular aim, which is to notify his or her receiver about the things that he or she has done within the period of lockdown. Now, how are uncle and auntie doing? I remember you had your exams last time we had a conversation. Are the results out? You see, it's another idea, discussing something different entirely. So it says, I would be waiting for your reply. Please take care of yourself and uncle and aunt. So that's it. Now we have our complimentary close. The complimentary close, like I told us, the formal format for a complimentary close is what? Yours sincerely. But remember, it's not out of place to use any other complimentary close. Lots of love, best wishes, warm regards, very okay. But for me, I prefer using yours sincerely so that I wouldn't have to think so much, because that's the formal format. yours sincerely. Striking thing that we must note, the Y is in capital letter, while the S in yours sincerely, is in small letter. That alone can, deny you 1 mark. And you know what 1 mark can do? If you were to get C5 and you omitted the S, or rather you put the S in capital letter, and 1 mark is deducted or half mark is deducted, it can bring you down to C6. So we must take note of these things, not just to write, but to follow the rudiments in writing. So the S in sincerely is what? Small letter, very important. Immediately after your yours sincerely, be careful enough to observe your comma, then your name. You can see that my name is directly under the Y. It is wrong to put your name in between yours and sincerely, or to put the first letter of your name under the second letter of yours. Please let your first letter be directly under the first letter of the first word in your complementary clause. All right, that will be all for now. We will now look at an example. Let's go to the exam guide to actually look at certain questions that relate to what we have done today. Okay, remember informal letter is not what you see in an objective question. It's basically a theory question, and you bet me you will always see it in your external exam, be it SSCE, be it NECO. All right, even those who are writing the junior exams, they also see it. So definitely letter writings will come up, but the problem, like I usually tell my students, you do not know the one they will bring out. So it's good you abreast yourself with all the letter writing types, know their modalities, so that once questions are asked, you can tell yourself you are writing a formal letter. Remember, you may say that, oh, even if you don't know if it's an informal or formal or semi-formal, as long as the body of the letter conveys the message, you are good. That is a no-no. When you do write the body of the letter and you fail to observe the organization aspect, then you have started failing. Because while marking letter writing, they mark it using a particular format. You have your content, you have your organization, you have your mechanical accuracy, and you have your expression. So if you actually do justice to the body of the letter, there they will look at your content, there the mechanical accuracy will be taken care of, there also the expression will be taken care of. But what about the organization? You could miss out in that one if you fail to know the type of letter and the number of addresses or address to write. So let's look at the first one here. It says, write a letter to your friend in another school telling him or her the valuable lessons you learned during a recent excursion. Write a letter to your friend. Now, looking at the question given, outrightly I know that I'm writing an informal letter. How do I know that I'm writing an informal letter? Because I've been asked to write to my friend. Remember in our introduction we said informal letters are letters that are written to family, well-wishers, and friends. So if I'm starting this letter, I will definitely start off with my address. I will assume, since I've not been given where my friend is staying, because sometimes in an exam they will tell you, write to your friend who is in another state. All right, write to your friend who is in another state. So once they ask you to write to a friend who is in another state, it simply tells you one thing, that in your address, your own state has to be there. But where you are not asked to write to your friend, there was no restriction on where the person is. I can decide that friend of mine is in the same state with me. I can decide that friend of mine is in another state. I can decide that friend of mine is in another country. But look at the question, says, write a letter to your friend in another school. So in this case, to make it more real, I would definitely assume that this person is in the same state with me, but possibly not in the same town. So my address will end in my own town. There won't be states in that address. So I would be expecting you to go through our exam guide and make attempts to look at some letter writing questions and identify which is an informal letter and which is not an informal letter. Thank you for participating in today's class. You can practice more questions using the ExamGuide app. The app scores and gives a detailed explanation of all the questions at the end of your practice test. You can learn a particular topic of interest with different modes like study mode, mock mode, and practice mode. It also has other features that make learning fun. It is a must-have for all serious students. Download from www.examguide.com if you don't have it yet. See you in the next class. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, hit the notification bell, and share the videos to people that will benefit from it. Bye.